I wanted to talk a little bit about what is IFS and what are the potential benefits of IFS informed coaching. And so, if you're not familiar with IFS at all, it's an acronym. Well, it's an initialism, technically, that stands for Internal Family Systems. And so the idea with it is that our personality, what we commonly refer to as our personality, exists as a collection of sub-personalities, which are referred to as parts in the IFS framework. And we can get to know those parts by taking them seriously as parts of ourselves and trying to get to know them through targeted, focused conversations with ourselves, through meditation, or through simply the act of incorporating parts language into our speech patterns. And that is I don't want to get too lost in talking about that. I was thinking of making another video about that. But that is, to me, the first step in getting to know our parts, is getting to speak for them rather than from them, which the founder of IFS, a man named Dick Schwartz, talks about that in his book, No Bad Parts. And that is the way to do that, I've found, is to simply try to say, when talking about how you feel about something, or when I'm talking about how I feel about something, instead of saying, oh, I feel this, or I'm so this, to say, a part of me feels like this, or a part of me feels so blank, whatever it might be, whether it's to another person, or even if I'm talking to myself, having a inner monologue type situation. And that, to me, is helpful just to remind me that I have a self, a highest self with a capital S, which is part of the IFS therapy speak as well. So just to get not to get too into the weeds on what the IFS framework is, but the idea is that these different parts of ourselves play different roles. And so the roles that they play often have a protective quality to them. So some of the parts that we find within us we refer to as protectors. And there's two different classes of protectors. There's the managers and there's the firefighters. And so when we are in a situation where we might feel triggered potentially, then these different parts come out which help to try to protect us from feeling pain. And often that pain is something that reminds us of, like what being triggered is, being reminded of a past trauma, a past wound, a past event that caused us to develop some limiting belief about ourselves or the world that tells us we're going to get hurt in this situation, and we need to fight, flight, freeze, fawn, one of these stress responses, and we feel this in our body. This is somatic experiencing, getting to know these stress responses and stuff. But part of IFS is then saying, okay, well, now that I'm feeling this triggered feeling, what part of me is that coming from? And that's usually coming from another part that we would refer to as an exile. And these are usually smaller, younger parts of our self, maybe stuck in a moment in the past. And so I can speak from my own experience on this, which is that when I realized that I had parts, the first exile that I noticed was myself as a 12-year-old little boy in my childhood bedroom with my dad telling me that my parents were going to get a divorce, which a part of me did not want to admit caused me trauma, caused me psychic trauma. Another part of me knew that it did, but these were protector parts, trying to rationalize it, manager parts for me that sought to rationalize this experience and say, well, it's not really trauma, like I wasn't abused. That to me is what like trauma would mean. Somebody abused a young person, either physically, emotionally, sexually, something like that. And that didn't happen to me, so what happened was not really trauma, and I would compare, one of the things I would do is compare my experience to someone else's experience who had gone through something really brutally traumatic like being abused, and say, well, what happened to me wasn't that bad, so if I'm feeling bad about it, then there's something wrong with me, I'm deficient in some way. So these are some of the rationalizations that my manager parts tried to come up with in order to help me explain this experience as being really not wounding, not traumatic, actually. And it wasn't until I ate iboga for the first time that I realized that, oh, wait, that was actually like really traumatic and has helped to shape what I call my personality in ways that were not like legible for me. And getting to know my parts helped me to see the ways that had shaped my personality and how I didn't have to just like leave that exile trapped in that room, leave that part of me stuck in that moment, that part of me could change, and that change was going to be something that helped spark the changes in my fateful vision that I desired so much. And that was something I talked about in a previous video about extant visions versus fateful visions, the differences and how they can complement each other. And so for me, that extant vision that I had as a result of my experience with iboga, seeing this part, because this is what happened in my experience, is that I encountered multiple parts actually, but I encountered what I have now come to understand, which I didn't at the time, is a manager part. That I met this manager part and he trusted, and that me in that moment he was able to soften back enough because of the influence of iboga and the self energy it just like gave me in that experience, that this manager part of me was able to soften back and show me, sort of pull the curtain back and show me, oh, there is this wounded child in here. Now that manager part didn't necessarily have a solution for that, because, well, his job of managing it had been to keep that part at bay, to keep him behind the curtain. And here he trusted me enough to actually show me a glimpse behind the curtain. Now I knew, and now this is what IFS informed integration work is important for me as the next step of realizing this fateful vision. So I had this extant vision where I learned something about myself, and then now I have the opportunity to actually get to know these parts of me and to heal them. So I spent a good year and a half or so working with that part. And I spent a couple of years before that not knowing anything about parts and trying to do healing work, which I absolutely was doing, while unaware of this notion of an internal family system and how getting to know that internal family system could radically alter my perception of what healing means. But once I did realize that I had this experience with my parts and see that I was capable of healing those parts and not just living with them, certainly not getting rid of them, but allowing them to be freed from this pain. That doing that could mean healing in a way that I didn't really think was possible. There's a lot more to say about what IFS is, but to me, like, on my website it says radically liberating, the homepage or whatever, and I wrote that because, like, that's what I think this is. I think that's what Iboga wants for us, and I think that's what our highest self wants, is to be liberated. Like, the idea of realizing that we are, like, free is, to me, like the highest sort of goal or achievement that doing a process of healing can confer on somebody. And that doesn't mean free of pain. That doesn't mean free of worry, or free of anxiety or depression, or free of the things that have bedeviled us and plagued us throughout our life. What it means is free of being so wedded to the belief that these problems define us, and allowing ourselves to be defined by what we choose to associate with. The ideas, the people, processes, to embrace that idea of liberation as a mindset, as a lifestyle. It's something that a gift that we can give ourselves, a gift we can give our friends and family. I said in a previous video that I think love is at the heart of the gift that Iboga has for us. And it just reminds me of a quote from Toni Morrison that I love, where she says, "We think that love is a gift we give others, but really it's a gift that we give ourselves." And this is the deepest truth. And I think that, in terms of healing, this is the deepest truth. In terms of being somebody who is worthy of love, in our opinion, is to give ourselves that gift, so we know that we're worthy of it, and that we then will be filled with it and can share it with those around us, instead of needing their love to complete us. That we can share our love with them because we don't need more love from other people. We have all of it that we need, and when we're filled with it in that way, we can then share it, and we don't have to try to hoard it. We don't have to try to get it from other people, because love isn't a gift that we get from others. It's not a gift that we give to others. It's a gift we give ourselves. And if we're able to give ourselves that love, two people are able to give themselves plenty of love, then they can share their love with each other. And if 3 people can do that, if 4 people can do that, if a whole community can do that, this is where I think, Iboga's vision, Iboga's fateful vision, is that's where it's headed, and so when I think about parts and working with parts and how our parts can help us to see who we truly are, that we really are a beautiful being, free being with a light inside of us, our intuition, our soul, our spirit, whatever it is that we call it, that ineffable part of us that contains our most innocent and pure essence. When we get to know our parts and they start to see that truth in us, this is how our vision can be realized. But here's my thing about visions versus plans, is that I really think a heart-centered vision for ourselves, a heart-centered, fateful vision for our life, is different than having like a 5-year plan or a well-constructed plan which we're going to try to implement step by step, project milestones or something like that. And the difference is that when we have a plan in that way, with all these steps, it's very rational. And I think using some of our important manager parts to help us create that vision. But a heart-centered vision for our life is one that is not so wedded to outcomes. It doesn't need specific things to happen. It's not based on desires or fears, the desires and the fears of our parts. It's based on the heart-centered vision for living that is our self-energy. So if we live simply with curiosity as our main concern, with compassion for others as our main concern, with courage to do things that are uncomfortable, with the calm energy to be around people who trigger us, with the confidence to speak our mind regardless of what people think, with the clarity to do so from a place of authority, with the creativity to make up stuff as we go along. And there's another couple of C's in there too. There's 8 C's in IFS. I didn't say them all. But if we're able to do that, then our vision for the life that we want will come to pass. And it won't have to be something that we spend so much time trying to create, trying to plan, trying to be in charge of. This is a way to surrender some of our control over these outcomes, over this desire and fear matrix that drives so much of our decision making, and to simply say, I will be fine with whatever outcome so long as it sparks my curiosity, allows me to be compassionate, engages my creativity, provides opportunities for courage, builds my confidence, creates a sense of calm, connects me to other people. Connection, there's one I missed, and whatever the other ones are, that framework for IFS is a framework for a heart-centered vision for our lives. And if you had an experience with iboga, or if you thought about an experience with iboga, or if you don't want to have any experience with plant medicine at all, that is open to all of us. You don't need to have an extant vision to create this fateful vision, heart-centered vision for living. I personally was had a lot of parts that didn't believe in me, didn't believe in the power to change, and certainly didn't believe in the kind of I mean, magic that can go into a heart-centered vision. And so it took an experience with iboga for me to see the light, you know. If it doesn't for somebody else, that's fine. And if somebody else feels like they want to have an experience with iboga, then my advice is what I've just discussed, you know, that taking that extant vision, whether it was visual or whether it was sensory in some other way, and to apply that extant vision to your fateful vision for your life. And that's what I want to help people do. And do for me as well. You know, that's what I'm trying to do. And this is what I want to help others do. Because I think that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So, all right. Basi.